Assalamu alaikum students, welcome to basic grammar. Don't use very, use these rare words instead of very. Let's get started. Use rare instead of very hard to find. Use laden instead of heavy. Use soaring instead of very high. Use sweltering instead of very hot. Use colossal instead of very huge. Use staring instead of very hungry. Use battered instead of very hurt. Use crucial instead of very important. Use brilliant instead of very intelligent. Use captivating instead of very interesting. Use huge instead of very large. Use indolent instead of very lazy. Use tiny instead of very little. Use extensive instead of very long. Use enduring instead of very long term. Use slack instead of very loose. Use thunderous instead of very loud. Use cruel instead of very mean. Use solvenly instead of very messy. Use essential instead of very necessary. Use apprehensive instead of very nervous. Use kind instead of very nice. Use adorable instead of very cute. Use swift instead of very fast. Use fortune instead of very lucky. Use dominate instead of very powerful. Use keen instead of very eager. Use wicked instead of very evil. Use petrified instead of very scared. Use glamming instead of very shiny. Use timid instead of very shy. Use innovative instead of very creative. Use deafening instead of very noisy. Use rapid instead of very quick. Use exhausted instead of very tired. Use worse instead of very bad. Use overjoyed instead of very glad.